Right. Thank you again, everybody, for your patience. We do have a and everybody's in camera. So it is 12:13 p.m. and I call the September 23rd. No, those are my notes. The what is it? November 19th meeting of the Texas Space Commission Board of Directors to order. Before we begin, can I ask that everybody make sure that your devices are silenced? And Norman, will you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Chair Gwen Griffin,
Here.
Vice Chair Kathy Leaders.
Sorry about that. Yep.
Thank you, ma'am.
You can hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
Ma'am.
Dr. Nancy Curry Gregg,
Here.
Sassy Dougherty,
Here.
Brad Morrison. Here. Adriana Cruz. Kurt Shireman, Evan Loomis, John Shannon, Dr. Heather Wilson. And we have quorum.
Thank you, Norman. Just quickly, I'm pleased to report that last week the Space Foundation hosted its annual board meeting in Houston. And it was really a great opportunity to talk about the creation and the work of the Texas Space Commission with a group of true industry leaders, the Space Foundation Board. Hi, Adrian. The Space Foundation Board are really the leaders, many of the leaders in the industry. And most importantly, I think what was valuable about that time was for us to answer their questions about what the Texas Space Commission is and what we are doing. Also of note, got an update from them last week that the Space Foundation is finalizing their details on the second annual Space Finance Forum, which will be held in Dallas, February 18th and 19th. So we're pleased that that's going to be located in Texas this year. And when I think about Dallas with the title of Space Finance Forum, as I was preparing for today's meeting, it's now home of, more New York Stock Exchange listed companies than any other state in the nation. The expansion of the NASDAQ regional headquarters to Dallas, along with the new Texas Stock Exchange, really make Dallas that hub to convene space industry leaders with new capital resources. So I'm excited that we'll have that opportunity to be part of that in mid-February. And then yesterday, just to note, the Texas Space Commission joined the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce to announce the new Texas Space Summit, which will focus on the business side of space, not the technology, but the business side of space. And that's slated for September 21st through 23rd at the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center there in San Antonio. And as I thought about San Antonio and its role in space, it's certainly a city that understands defense, aerospace, cyber, medicine, or aerospace medicine, as we like to call it, and then just the overall space industry, many companies located there and research organizations. So I appreciate the Chamber's leadership in creating what I believe is one of the first Texas space summits or base summits. So on the business side, House Bill 5246. So I'd like to remind everyone on the board and those that are listening in today or here in the room with us that House Bill 5246, which is the new statute that became law on September 1st, allows the commission to do some new things of significance, to enter into an intergovernmental agreement, subject to the governor's approval, of course, with another state or federal government entity, including the Department of Defense or Department of War and NASA, to really carry out the purposes of the commission. And that's something, a great add for us as a commission when we look to enhance the space ecosystem here in Texas. So as a result, I'd like members of the funding subcommittee of the board to work with staff on any necessary updates for our rules in alignment with the Texas Administrative Code as we consider future grants from the new $300 million in appropriated funds. So it's time to move forward on that. So I'd like to ask the staff to begin working on that. Additionally, for board members, I'd like to ask that you please continue completing evaluations for SURF applications in which you don't have a conflict of interest, of course, so that we can continue to consider approval of more grants with the remaining $24 million very soon. I know that each application requires serious contemplation and often additional research, but I'm hopeful that we can meet in December to consider more awards as we wrap up the year. And then marketing was another topic that I went back and looked at with 5246. Our new statute directs us to market and promote the state as the premier location for space-related industries and promote commission activities. So as such, I'd like to ask staff to work with the TARSEC Executive Committee to identify and recommend a list of priorities, including events slated for 2026. I think looking at something at about a year at a glance for the board to consider as we comply with our new statute of marketing space for Texas. So now let's move on to agenda 3, and that's approval of our meeting minutes. We need to consider approval of our minutes from the September 23rd meeting. Y'all have a draft. Board members have a draft in your board book in tab 2. Does anyone have any edits to those meeting minutes? Hearing no edits, do these minutes accurately reflect our meeting in September? Okay, if so, then may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Texas Space Commission Board?
So moved.
Thank you, Brad. And can I have a second?
Second.
Was that I think I heard Nancy there. So a second from Nancy. All in favor of approving the minutes from the September 23rd, 2025 Texas Space Commission, say aye.
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 Need to hear Nancy
Aye.
and Sassy. Okay.
Did you say you didn't hear us?
I need Nancy if I could.
Okay, I said aye. but-
Okay, sorry. Sorry. Okay, gotcha. And all opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the minutes are approved. I'd like to turn it over to Norman for his executive director.
Thank you, ma'am. Just a few comments for the room and those online as well. Update about the 22 awards that the board has taken action on to date. 16 of those agreements have been fully executed. One agreement has been sent out to the recipient for signature, so we're standing by on that. And then 5 are still in review through the grants team communication with those grantees on various supporting documentation that's required. So thankful to the team and the grants folks in particular to help us get those fully executed. Since our last open meeting, in addition to the activities that the chair mentioned, I wanted to share with everybody also that we have had a series of engagements around the state, completed site visits out in Midland as well as Van Horn. Yesterday, also while in San Antonio, Brad and Gwen and I attended the Texas Association of Business. Adriana also was a presenter there for their Powering Next Economic Frontier Conference. The governor was the keynote speaker and had some good engagements while there. A couple of other things, the Texas Economic Development Corporation Investor Summit in DFW, also where the governor spoke a while back. We were there for that. Made an appearance at the Texas Nuclear Summit here in Austin, the CHETS Summit over in College Station. The team and I hosted the Meridian International Center's delegation from Bahrain, Egypt, and Oman. Thank you, sorry. They were here in Austin during a scheduled visit that the State Department helped to organize. And some upcoming travel, just so everybody's tracking, site visit to the University of Houston, to Prototown in Lockhart, the Y Texas Conference in College Station, as well as the National Academies convening up in DC next year as well in January. Want to highlight that some of the team have also gone to represent the Space Commission at the invitation of some industry groups. Zeke Solis, our senior planner, presented at the American Planning Association's Texas Chapter Annual Conference that was held recently in College Station. Carlos Novato, one of our data scientists, attended the Politico Space Economy Summit in Florida. Kim Calton, our other data scientist, presented at the NASA Office of STEM Engagement Workforce Summit in Florida. And most recently, Andres Ramos, our Director of Communications, presented at the Texas Midwest Community Network's 30th Annual Conference in Abilene. Lots of activity. As I previously reported, many various interested companies and organizations continue to contact us about their interest in partnering with the commission or supporting our activities. Several in person, many in virtual connections, and oftentimes there is a good exchange with the Office of Economic Development and Tourism. Their folks also, so thank you, Adriana, and your team for making sure that those conversations are underway. And finally, I'd be remiss not to mention the announcement made yesterday by Governor Abbott about his decision to reappoint Gwen Griffin to the Texas Space Commission Board of Directors for a term to expire. Thank you, ma'am. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Norman, for that. Now I'd like to turn it over to Stephanie Murphy, the chair of TARSEC. Stephanie, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Gwen. Can you all hear me okay? Audio coming through good?
Very
Great.
well.
Thank you. I don't speak as fast as Norman, but I'll try to be just as quick today. So congratulations, Chairman Griffin, on the reappointment. That's exciting to hear. A couple quick updates on TARSEC. Just so everybody's aware, we have a full slate on our executive committee now for the first time since we've been up and going. So I mentioned in the last meeting, Lori Magruder has replaced Dan Jaffe as the representative for the University of Texas. And then Jason Kim has been appointed to the executive committee for TARSEC as well. He's in Austin and CEO of Firefly. As I mentioned in the last couple meetings, TARSEC has opened up our membership beyond just the institutions of higher education to entities across the state. To date, we have 58 of those private entities across industry, nonprofit, and K-12 or government organizations that have been approved as members, in addition to the 72 active members that we have from the institutions of higher education. We have 10 more applications pending for our next review and approval cycle by our EC. So we're excited that we're generating additional membership, and we're excited to also use that membership to focus in on different working groups and take input from entities across the state that might help TSC better plan strategies or get some insight where they need. So we're starting to hone in on what those working groups are going to look like. We're hoping to mirror what TSC needs. And so those might be LEO, Lunar Defense, among with some others. So we're loosely calling them working groups right now. Happy to see how that develops a little further. That's kind of our administrative update. We did have two things that we wanted to put on the radar for TSC as you're going into your next year in strategic planning and taking some action on that next tranche of money that you received. So one is we delivered a report called Texas at the Forefront in the summertime to Norman and Gwen and the commissioners. And we wanted to just highlight in there that there is some help that we'd like to provide with rounding out a strategy for critical infrastructure for the state. And by critical infrastructure, we mean really testing capabilities, radiation testing, vibe testing, thermal vac capabilities, microgravity research, precision cleaning. So all of that is highlighted in that report that we sent. We just wanted to call that to the commission's attention again. And the other thing that was not in our report, but we want to bring to your attention for consideration, especially with the new legislation under HB 5246, which allows the state to enter into agreements with the Department of Defense. One thing that we think is critical to prepare the entities across the state to be ready to take on more DoD work is being compliant with the new regulations around the cybersecurity maturity model certification, so CMMC. That's the Department of Defense's standardized framework for ensuring contractors protect government data that's sensitive. And that includes controlled unclassified information as well as just federal contract information. But those requirements are becoming more formal across the DoD. And in 2026, there's a requirement that any company that does work with the DoD as a prime or a sub meet certain certification levels. So either being self-certified or third-party certified. And we think this is really critical for the state to focus on helping enable these companies understand what these requirements are so that we can be prepared to do work for the DoD. Happy to have a side conversation about that or share more about that. But it does apply to prime and sub. Anyone in that supply chain would be impacted by that. And if you don't meet the requirements, which come online at the end of 2026, you cannot bid, win, or perform on work for the Department of Defense. So a really critical certification around ensuring information is protected in the right way. So we just wanted to highlight that to the Space Commission, and our TARSEC Executive Committee stands by ready to help dive into that as you guys need in the coming weeks. That's all I have for my report, Glenn, unless there's any questions for me.
Just one quick question for you, Stephanie, and I should have asked this of you when you shared this with me, but is there a link to some FAQs, best practices for the CMMC that we might put in our minutes to help people?
Sure, I'd be happy to
Sounds
send
like
you a resource or two that I've seen. I can email those to you after this call.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions for Stephanie from the board? Thanks for the update there, Stephanie, and for the work of TARSEC and pulling together the committees and all the things that you're doing with the members as well. We do not have any Space Exploration and Aeronautics Research Fund or SURF applications to consider today. So we'll move on to agenda items 7 through 12. And as you look at on the agenda, next the board will meet in closed executive session under Texas Government Code sections 482.198 and 551.092 as posted and noticed in agenda item 7. So staff, please show the members of the public joining in person where they might wait while the executive session, until the executive session concludes. And please take the necessary steps to ensure only board members attending remotely are in the executive session room. Thank you.